While watching Bridgerton, have you noticed those little bags that the ladies always tend to carry? Well, before the Regency era, when side hoops or panniers were all the rage, women would wear separate pockets underneath their skirts, leaving plenty of room to carry all of their things, including secrets. With the introduction of the slimmer line of Regency dress, it became less popular to wear bulky pockets underneath your skirts, unless you wanted to look a little bit like you were wearing Regency court dress, which is an interesting style. And instead of pockets, bags are usually carried everywhere in order to hold your things. They were called reticules, or sometimes ridicules, maybe because of how ridiculous it is that you now had to carry a bag everywhere you went. In celebration of a new season of Bridgerton, I wanted to create my own Regency-style reticule, maybe to hold all of my own secrets. By the way, do you like my newly knit 1940s rainbow sweater? Anyway, let's go design our Regency reticule. For those of you who may be new here, I am very interested in fiber crafts, especially historic fiber crafts. As a lot of the items in Bridgerton have some symbolism behind it, like the butterflies or the bumblebees, I wanted to create a reticule that has a nod towards my personal interests. And I thought that I would start by looking at some extant reticules from the Regency era that have anything to do with fiber crafts. What was incredibly popular at the time was netting. However, I don't think I have room in my craft closet right now to pick up yet another fiber arts. I also found this amazing pineapple reticule, which a few people have recreated and reknit, but as it's been done a few times before, I decided to do something maybe a little bit different. The next very popular fiber art that I saw was beading. People would either crochet or knit beads into their fabric to create pictures, and they looked absolutely incredible. I actually have an example of a bag that is beaded or includes some beading from the time a little bit later in the 1800s, more in the Victorian era rather than the Regency era. However, I have done beading before and it is tedious. Let's just say that at the moment, I'm not exactly in the mood to do such fine, intricate beading work. Instead, I decided to look at some other reticule designs. I found beautiful fashion plates from the Regency era that showed many different shapes and sizes, types, designs. This one in particular really kind of stood out to me. It looks almost like it's a sewn bag with some sort of embellishment on top of it. And I was thinking that I would take that as the starting idea of the inspiration for my reticule. I was trying to think of like what symbols could represent me. I think I'm gonna go a little bit more directly on the nose to represent the different fiber arts and fiber crafts that I enjoy. Looking at our chosen reticule basis, I created this shape for my reticule, and then I made a little bit of a mock-up of it. It's going to be three-sided to give me a little bit of room to put my things in, but also maybe not make the surface area of what I need to decorate so large. Now I have to think about how I'm going to decorate this bottom half of my reticule. So I'm going to trace out my pattern piece on this piece of paper, and I kind of want to decorate from the point downwards. One of the things that's always been in my head when I was designing this is I kind of want a filet crochet medallion in the middle. I mean, this is going to be a little on the nose, not very much symbolism, but that's going to say the particular craft. And because this purse has three sides, I'm going to have one that says knit, one that says crochet, and one that says tat or tatting. I'm not exactly sure how much I can fit. To incorporate tatting, I wanted to make a border out of tatting up here. I'm going to do a slightly simple border, but this one will be inspired from a 1790s painting where someone actually interpreted from the painting what the style of tatting was, and it looks somewhat like this, and it has extra little picots on the end. Now I was thinking about how to kind of fill in this space, and the only craft I haven't used yet is knitting, so I wanted to have this be a knitted mesh background. I am not 100% sure how I'm going to make this work yet. I guess we'll see when we get there in terms of how to do this knitted background. Where I'm going to start is with the crochet medallion here in the middle, and we're going to begin by creating a gauge for the filet crochet to see how small I need to use my crochet hook in order to get some letters on there. I have an example of a filet crochet word that says bread up here, And I can see that I do need to be quite small in order to fit a word onto the main bottom plate here of this particular reticule. So let's begin by doing that. I tried a few different things when going for these gauge swatches. The first one was a 1.9mm crochet hook with 4 stitches or 3 in the space. It turned out quite large, so I knew I needed to go down. Before changing crochet hook size though, I decided to go down to 3 stitches or just 1 in the blank. This is a little bit better, but when I held it up to the size, I still thought, man, I don't even know if I can get 1 letter in when I'm trying to do it at this gauge. So I went down to a 1.6mm crochet hook. I think this is the one that I'm going to go with. I don't have thread that can go smaller, and if I go any smaller on my crochet hook, I don't think I'm going to be able to crochet anything. It'll just be too small for me to work with. I don't think I can get a full word on here. I think it'll only be a letter. And instead of going sideways, I'm going to do one big capital letter. We'll do K for knit, C for crochet, T for tatting. I'm going to work on creating my K, C, and T. I have finished with my letters. Here's a C, here is my K, and my T for tatting. It might be a little difficult to see the letters against this light background, which is why I believe I'm going to go for a bit of a darker background when I choose the silk lining. We are going to work on the tatted edging next. I mentioned earlier that I'm going to go for a pattern from the 1790s. I know the Regency era is later, but I thought it would be fun to take a pattern from around that time. And this is a pattern interpreted by Bryce Adams. I'll link her video down below, where she looked at a painting of a woman who had tatting in her lap and then tried to recreate it. So let's get to tatting. The tatted borders for the decoration on my reticule are now done. They went a lot faster than I thought they would. I thought I would spend a lot of time on the tatting. Maybe also I've gotten a little bit faster because tatting has become one of my new favorite crafts. Now I have to think about how I'm going to add the knitted mesh to this. I honestly don't really know. In this case, I guess I will learn how to do something slightly different, and I think what I need to do is create a knit mesh background in the triangular shape. Then I'm going to sew my filet crochet letters on top of it and cut away the knitted mesh that sits behind. It's terrifying. Anytime you cut your knitting, you could just unravel your whole piece, so it's kind of scary, but I'm hoping it'll turn out okay. I need to figure out what mesh type I want, like what lacy background do I want. I'm gonna try 2 variations. One's very open, where you're basically just yarning over, knit 2 together, yarning over, knit 2 together all the way across. It's a very open lattice structure, and one with a slightly more closed lattice structure. I think it'll just be a yarn over, knit 2 together, knit 1, and then that and repeat across the rows. Comparing the 2 types of laces that I tried, this denser one I think clashes a little bit too much with the filet crochet and the tatted border, and so I decided to make the background out of the more open lace, and I sat down and I knit the triangles together with the help from my lovely Nutella. I knit 3 identical triangle mesh laces, and holding all of the separate pieces of the embellishment on my reticule together, I really like how they look. And I now have to sew the filet crochet on top of my knitting. However, as you can see, the knit mesh is a little bit rough looking, so I have to block the knit mesh first. It's very important to block your lace knitting. I blocked my lace pieces using a homemade rice starch solution, so I had to wait for those to dry before I could continue working on them. So I moved on to the step of sewing the bag out of this wonderful blue poly sateen fabric, I believe. I started out by cutting out my pieces without any seam allowance, so of course I had to redo my first set, but I eventually got 6 of these cut out so that I could then sew it together to form the bag and the lining. The bag is sewn together and fully lined, as well as a drawstring really fiddled through. It's now time to add the embellishments from my different fiber crafts on the top. My blocked lace is ready to go, and it is now time to sew on, with my sewing machine, the filet crochet letters to the knit mesh. Cross your fingers for me that this has secured the knitting well enough, because now I'm going to be cutting away the excess lace on the back, and I really hope that this doesn't unravel. I hope that I've given it enough sturdiness so that it will continue to hold its shape without completely coming apart. I think it looks really nice and is even better than I imagined, though the filet crochet letters are still very hard to read, unfortunately. At this point I was getting very excited because I thought the embellishments looked really beautiful. I just needed to secure them to the bag so that they wouldn't flop out or around when I was carrying it around with me. So I took a needle and thread and started sewing the different fiber crafts to my reticule. Were you surprised at the contents of my reticule? What else should I carry with me in the future? Thank you so much for joining me as I designed and created this fiber arts inspired reticule. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you like anything to do with historical fiber arts, fiber crafts, knitting, crocheting, sewing, weaving, please feel free to subscribe, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye.